Good day, everybody. Sunday, 18th of September 2022. Warm welcome to today's discussion, which is timely because it marks roughly a year since Evergrande collapsed, China's largest real estate lender. Well, that's larger than Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Remember that? Well, and we know how that turned out, so it could be quite worrying. Or is it? Collapse of China's real estate market. Have we been here before? I think we have, yes. I've been reading about this for 10 years. That's no lie. I read about this first roughly 10, possibly even 11 years ago in an Economist Award winning book, Red Capitalism. So, generally, but that doesn't, just because something has been talked about for a while doesn't mean that it cannot actually happen. But can it be avoided? Well, first of all, we have to look at China's growth model. Well, China has been, since 1978, following what many call the Gerschenkron growth model. Gerschenkron, not consciously following it, but it's named after the Ukrainian-American economist who observed it, Alexander Gerschenkron. It's based on the premise that developing countries lack savings, and therefore without savings you can't invest in infrastructure. Roads, railways, hospitals, those kind of things. Well, the solution is to drive up savings. First of all, by attracting foreign capital, which was the case in the foreign economic zones, and by contracting household consumptions. So this is done through a couple of methods. First of all, contracts push up savings. This is done through negative interest rates. Low interest rates forces people to save. The other is taxes, and a variety of taxes were used in the early stages of reform and opening up to transfer wealth from households to other sectors, namely infrastructure. And by all accounts, China has been very successful at doing this. China has one of the highest household savings rates in the world, and also, well, until recently, a fairly low consumption rate, and also world's highest growth record, although that can be disputed. The trouble is that countries following the Gerschenkron novel eventually stagnate, and they find themselves building bridges to nowhere. Well, bridges to nowhere, this means rather useless infrastructure, named after the proposed bridge in Alaska back in the early 2000s. So China has, yes, been building bridges to nowhere in the form of, well, rather questionable infrastructure and a lot of empty, unsold real estate. Not just in Ordos, the famous example of that largely empty city in Inner Mongolia, but all over the country. It's not uncommon these days to see stacks of empty, unsold apartment blocks being demolished. Well, a worrying trend? Well, possibly. Well, the other problem with this growth model is, well, that very nasty problem that we all like to ignore called debt. Countries following this growth model, eventually when it runs out, they find themselves with a debt overhang. And debt overhangs can have some rather nasty results. The first one could be deflation, where prices fall. Well, that sounds good, prices fall. No, it's not, because wages fall. Or at least if wages don't fall, your working hours fall, wages stagnate, and unemployment rises. But debts, they don't fall. No, deflation encourages the total value of debt. So that's pretty bad. The other one is hyperinflation, Well, hyperinflation wipes away the debt. Sounds good, doesn't it? No, it doesn't. It also wipes away the savings, the wealth of just about almost everybody. Um, if it's not good, if you have any doubts about hyperinflation, ask a Zimbabwean. Although there's not any Germans alive today who remember the hyperinflation of the 1920s, it has a very prominent feature in the collective memory of Germany. In an opinion poll asked of Germans what do they fear the most in life, at number 2 came cancer. At number 1 was hyperinflation. Not a pretty prospect. The other one is what's called the Romanian option, which refers back to Romania in the 70s under Ceausescu was granted most favoured nation trading status. And the Ceausescus proceeded to invest in infrastructure, including the world's largest parliament building and possibly arguably larger in overall size than the Pentagon, and many other, infrastructure of questionable worth. Along with it, a massive load of debt, which was to be paid ahead of schedule. Okay, well, this is where the Romanian option comes in. It's called austerity. Transfer the debt burden to the citizens. This is done through higher taxes and reduction in welfare spending, and also, in the case of Romania, rationing. Well, doesn't sound pretty and didn't work out too well for the Ceausescus. I mean, we all know what happened to them on Christmas Day 1989, and it wasn't a very Merry Christmas. So there's another option, financial repression, which is low interest rates to generally flatten the debt ratio, but already underway, already been done before and can only do so much. So that leaves with another option, and that is to pay off the debt by selling off certain assets. And the assets to pay off the debt are there. They're all over China in the form of real estate, goes without saying, and state assets at the local and provincial level. These include many state-owned enterprises, which could be reformed, possibly privatised and put to better uses. Some state-owned enterprises are actually quite good and quite workable, and in fact many are. They just need a bit of reform, a bit of clearing out of waste, and they'll be good to go. On the other hand, some just need to be retired and perhaps sold off to the highest bidder, and who knows? After all, the private sector has many ideas that governments don't. On the other hand, there is this trouble called vested interests, and indeed we have been here before. In 2007, former Prime Minister Wen Jiabao talked about the need of taking on the various structural inequalities in the economy, namely the dead weights, the moribund sectors which are dragging down the economy and turning it to this debt-fueled growth model. Well, it was a good idea, but the trouble is vested interests did not cooperate. Well, who are the vested interests? Well, they're all over in the form of local and provincial level politicians who have a vested interest in various sectors of the economy. They could be employing family members, like we say, crony capitalism, and they weren't so keen on selling these things off. Well, now we could be in a better climate to take on this, what we call crony capitalism or corruption. Yes, people may argue against possible reform, which could rob their little emperor son of a possibly lucrative job, but if you want to argue with that under the current system, well, there's a nice place for that. It's called a prison cell. So the means of possibly taking on the debt restructuring the moribund parts of the economy are there. The government has more teeth, so to speak, and can take on these vested interests. So what to do with all these assets when they're eventually, I don't know, privatised, sold off? Well, the solution, which many have suggested as a saviour for China's economy, is green energy. Well, at the moment, China leads the world in green energy transformation. Currently, it's building more wind farms than, well, any other country on the planet. Not exactly surprising, really. So, and there's plans to build a hell of a lot more. China intends, between now and 2060, to invest 1.2 trillion per year in green energy. Well, that green energy, investment over, if followed through to 2060, would amount to the equivalent of the entire GDP of Indonesia. That's no small deal. So, can this be done? Well, first of all, what's the big unknown is what's going to happen in the real estate market. Well, the current trajectory is not good. First of all, real estate in China, you would need approximately 25 years of an average annual income in Shenzhen to buy an apartment, versus 13 years in London or 8 years in New York. Yes, those cities which are notoriously expensive for their real estate prices, well, they're actually more affordable than Shenzhen. The other one is the proclamation by Xi Jinping that housing is for living, not speculation. So this naturally signals that it could be calling time on housing speculation and the use of housing as an investment tool. Well, that's where the problem lies, because many real estate developers have been falling foul of the three red lines as set out, which are liability to asset ratio, net debt to equity ratio, and cash to short-term debt ratio. Well, many real estaters are falling short on these criteria. Hence, that's why we are seeing people default on many apartments that haven't even been built yet. So, first of all, this could be the tricky thing. What do we do with the real estate market? Because the climate already isn't good for the global economy. We have world supply chain disruption from the obvious cause, the war in Ukraine. Then we also have supply chain disruption from the zero COVID policy, which is the equivalent of shutting down about 20% of the Chinese economy. Well, it's a question of when, not if, the zero COVID policy ends, but the future of the real estate market, well, I wish I could say it was a when or an if, but I will be rather modest and say that I honestly cannot say. But, well, watch this space. It'll be interesting to find out. Thank you all. Good day.